Hi class, in this video we're going to create an ASP.NET example web page that uses HTML controls. So let's open Visual Studio and create a new project, if I can get my mouse to cooperate. And I'm going to create a .NET Framework web application, and I'm going to name it HTML Controls. Now I want to create an empty website so that we can add our own tools and controls to it. Okay, so look at our empty website here, and you can see that we don't have any .aspx files. And if you remember from your reading, ASPX files are active server pages, or the kind of pages that we want to create. So let's create a new one. I'm going to add, and I want to add a web form. I could choose new item and find the web form in the templates list, or I can just choose web form here directly. I want to name my web form default because it's going to be my startup web page. Now, when I create this web page, web form, it shows the code for us, and you can tell right now we're looking at our ASPX file, and we want to change the title to our website. So we can click inside the HTML code here that's been generated, and notice our title begin tag and our title end tag. If I click to place my cursor in between those two tags, the properties display is for my title. Now you can scroll down and see all the different properties that you can set. We're going to go ahead and type data directly into the HTML code right here. And we'll say this is our HTML example. Now, if we were to run this, let's try it. We should see our page load, and it's of course going to be a blank page, but in the title of our tab, it's got the title that we specified in our code. So great. Now we can do a lot more with the properties. Let's try going to design mode first. So right now we're looking at our code. If you look down here at the bottom, over in the left, you'll see that we have some options. Right now, source is selected. That's why we're seeing the source code for our web page. We could click on design and go into a design mode, and then we're going to see the way the web page is going to look to our users. We could also split the screen and see the source at the top and the design at the bottom. Notice that there's a div tag here, right, prepared for me to type into. And in this div tag, if I look at the properties, again, I can see a lot of different information. If we want to put data into this, we can just type directly. Computer club registration form. And we're going to have some prompts here. See how this works. First name, last name, and email. And notice how as we're typing this data in, we don't really have to worry about using any sort of controls or labels or anything. It's just part of our form. Now there are lots of different tools that we can use as we're looking at the different options that we have available to us. First of all, let's look at our title, our computer club registration form. So you scroll down, you should see many different properties available to you. We could change specific things for just this one item, but it would be better for us to change the whole page. So I'm going to find in my source code, let's see, let's click in our HTML section. Notice how that selects everything in our design mode because everything will be affected. Now we should be able to find our block format tool. Do you see it up here? Right up here. There it is. We can say that we want things to be different types of formats. That doesn't seem quite right. Let me go back to just this particular item and let's see how we've got it set up now. Now it looks a little bit like Word. There's what we're looking for, is that block format. We can say that our first item is a heading, and that will make it nice big text. So we can do a lot of different things here. There are lots of ways that we can format items. I'm going to go back to our HTML section, and on our menus, let's look at format. We could attach a style sheet, we could set positions, we can do a lot of different things to format our information. Okay, they say format justify center was used to center the heading. We can change our font and selection, and we tried our block formatting things. Now let's try it says under format new style you could create a new style if you like. There are lots of different things you can do. I'd like to set the back color of our page. Let's see where we can go on this. Notice how we have a lot of different properties depending on what code we have selected. So that's really important, just kind of like working with a form where we have to have a certain control selected. When I'm at this page level, if you notice, it tells me what my code behind file is. That's going to be the C# code that's going to execute on the server associated with this page or web form. We have style sheet themes and all sorts of different things, properties that we can use at this level. When you get into your HTML area, again, different properties available to you. And in our body then, we have different types of things. Looks great. Now, when I'm looking at my div tag, I can click in the style property and bring up the style editor. And let's try it. I'm going to change my background here to a different color, and let's see what all we can impact. Ooh, that ought to be noticeable. It says click here to synchronize views. Okay, so notice that that just changed my heading, which is fine. Now if I go back to my HTML section, do I have that same property? No. See how it can be a little bit particular for us? So I can go to each of my individual paragraphs and format things. Let me check that. There's my heading one. Let's try it at the HTML level. Go in my background, set my background color to the awful green, click OK. Synchronize my views. Whoa, that did it, didn't it? So depending on where you access the property can determine how much of your page you're going to affect. So we want to be really super on top of what property. Notice our properties list here. We could also choose that. If I go back to my style to get rid of that color because it's just a little too much. Try something not quite so hard to look at. And my div tag is still the green because I had kind of overridden it, so I'll leave it that way. I like it that way. Now looking at this web page, we're going to use some HTML controls. And with ASP.NET, we need to be concerned about round trips to the server. So when a user creates an event on our web page, we will have that event process at the server so that our code is kind of server oriented, and that's kind of called a round trip to the server. So let's see how we're going to do this. We're going to go first of all to our HTML controls in our toolbox, and I'm going to change completely to design mode, and I'm going to add some items to our web page. We want a few different things. First of all, I want to add, let me see what they used here, an input button. Oh wait, I'm wrong. Let's try input text. And we want our first name. Notice how things move around, and we can change our ID, and let's call that txt first name. And then we can do the same thing with our last name. I'm going to put my cursor there, and I could tab or space a little bit before I put that input text box onto my form. Give me a little bit of control over where it goes. And I'll name this one txt xl name. And then our email address. Try to move a little bit, keep them lined up. See if you can move things around after you've got them formatted. This will be txtpx email. Now I know I've got a little bit of blank space here, so I'll try to delete it. Now notice that my first name text field is not really where I want it, so I'm going to try to get it moved over. If you select it, you can kind of affect it a little bit. Oh, that's not too bad. There it's sort of lined up. I'm going to test this to see how it looks. There we go. So there's our little web page. Now we want a button on our web page. So let's see what kind of button we would like. Before we go to our button, I guess, we want to put an image on our web page. So if we're going to work with an image, let's create a new folder. And we'll call it images. Keep everything all cleaned up. Now let's find an image, just an image of a happy face or anything like that. Let's see, I need a little bit more mouse move room on my desk. Oh, let's see. I think I'll go with this beautiful green one. And he's going into my pictures. And I'll put him in my CIS151 folder, in my pictures folder, and he's green smile. Now I want to add that item, so I'm going to add an existing item to my folder. Now the question is, where are my pictures? Not there, huh? Yeah, I know, it's all messed up. Not it. Try that again. I feel like a student, but you know, it's been a hard day. Hard night. No power last night. Couldn't get stuff done. Where did you go? Oh, I see. On my external, my fault. So let's try that again. I want to add, and of course, lots of ways I could do it. An existing item. I could just copy this directly into my folder. There he is. And now I've got my smiley face added. But before I can put him on my form, I'm going to kind of get my cursor positioned to where I would like this to be. He's going to be in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and get my cursor there and then see if I can add him in. Whoa, he's huge. I'll hold my shift key while I resize him so he doesn't get all out of shape. Oops, still got a little out of shape. What happened, Smiley? So there's my little smiley face. Now I think that we want a button underneath our smiley face. Actually, it's going to go above it. So let me click right here, press enter to move our smiley image down. And then we're going to put a button right above it. So I'm centered there. My cursor insertion point is right there where I want it. And I'm going to add an input button. Now my button can say something different. Let's name it first. This will be BTN submit. And the value is going to say submit. There we go. Now we have our form pretty well created, our web form. Let's run it again. See how it looks. Looks great. It's okay. Close that. Now, let's add some code. We're going to be looking at our code behind file. So let's see what we've got here. Notice in our default.aspx, if we expand that, we see our default.aspx.cs, our code behind file. Let's take a look at it. Right now, it has one method, the page load, and just like a form load method, the page load method executes before the page is displayed. Whenever our submit button is clicked, we're going to have that round trip to the server happen. And because we used HTML controls, we'll see that our items are not necessarily kept for us. Let's try some things. So I want to go back to our form, our web form. I feel like I named this first name field incorrectly. I did. So let's name it txtvx like the others. Now, when someone clicks submit, I would like to display a message, and I'm going to add something to hold that message. So let's put a, where are we? We want a label. We don't really have that kind of thing. So what if we use a standard control? Do we have a label? Oh, we do. Let's use one of those. Now, notice we used HTML controls for all of our other controls, and this one is going to be a label. So let's name it LBL output. And we make it say, welcome to start. Now, in our code, we want something to happen when somebody clicks the submit button. So I'm going to double click my submit button, and it created some code for me in our ASPX file. What about our code behind file? Oh, it didn't. How can we get it to do that? Well, we created a HTML type button here, so it's not really going to give us what we want. Whenever we created this button, sorry, I was thinking we used that HTML button. Let's change it. We see now that it didn't generate any code for us, right? So I'm going to go back to, whoops, my design mode here and delete that button. Now when I do so, I want to run my program first, make sure it didn't mess anything up, because you know how we can have trouble with our C# programs. Nope, it executes fine. So let's put a standard button on our form. There's a button. And I'm going to, again, make our text say welcome. Oops, wrong place. This needs to say submit. And we'll name it BTN submit. Now let's double click on our button. And now we see that code was created in our C# code behind file. What about our designer code? I'm going to look back at our ASPX file and the source code. I'll split it. And for our button, notice now it says run at equals server. So that little bit of code indicates that this button is going to transfer control to the server, to the code behind file. So we see a lot more happening there with that. So let's look at that code behind file. What do we want to have happen when somebody clicks submit? Well, we want to display their information in our label. So not a lot of code. We're going to set our label, oops, dot text property equal to thanks, double exclamation. Then we're going to add our text box first name. Doesn't like that at all, does it? So what kind of values do we have here? Now, as you notice, we're unable to access those values. We can run this. Let's try it. Let me show you what happens and why we're unable to access those fields. My form over here. Now, looking at our form, if we type in some information, click submit, we see our thanks message, but all our data has disappeared. That's because we use those HTML controls. Well, what can we do? Do we have to delete them all and replace them all? Not really. If we go back to our ASPX file, let's copy this item here, run at equals server, and we want to go to our source code so you can see better. What I'd like to do is copy that item into our text fields. So let's find one. Here's our email, and here's our last name. So I'm just going to add this right after the ID property. Now we have our first name, last name, and email. So let's go back and make sure we can still run. Here's our little form. So looks good. I didn't cause any trouble. So now I'm going to go into our code and add information about those text boxes. Oops. Trying to get too much done, huh? There we see our text box properties. So I want our first name dot what? I don't see a dot text. It should be dot value. Since we use that HTML field. Now after their first name, we're going to include a space plus their last name. Then after their last name, we're going to include this message, space hyphen information will be forwarded to space. And lastly, their email. And now we'll see that when we run, that data is retained round trip to the server because we said that it should process at the server in our code. So now we should see our data after we come back. Come on, you silly thing. Yay. Okay, so we've created our first web application. Please try doing some different things with all of the properties that are available to you, and we'll be back to enhance this application. Thank you.